right, so today we're going to be talking about orthographic projection. And I want to make sure the recording started. Yeah, we're good. It's recording. Today we're going to talk about orthographic projection. So when you're looking at your junior drafting booklet, we've just finished setting up our standards and drawing our title block. And now we're actually going to draw like an item. We're going to draw like a part or whatever. We're going to start drawing things that we have to lay out, put on our title block, and hand in. So we know kind of how to do the background. We know how to set up the background of AutoCAD, and we know how to draw like some basic shapes, like the ones from the robot exercise. But now we're going to look at how to actually like draw a part in two-dimensional views. So the essence behind orthographic projection is where you take a 3D part and you split it into important two-dimensional views. Because it's really hard to kind of convey the information of a 3D object in 3D or like in 2D. So with rapid prototyping measures like CNC and 3D printing, it is easier than ever to actually create a 3D object. However, it's still meaningful and important to be able to generate two-dimensional like drawings of a three-dimensional object, not only three-dimensional drawings. So what I mean by that is I've taken this first item and I've drawn it in 3 dimensions. So you can kind of see it as like an object. So if this was like the part that you had to draw or create in 2 dimensions, here's more or less how you would do this, or like what orthographic projection is. So right now, looking at this corner like this is called an isometric projection. This is where it's like it's a 2-dimensional drawing because it's like you can print it on paper, but it looks like 3 dimensions. So you can see like the front, the right side, and the top. This is the same as your booklet. This is called isometric or ISO, where you're looking at the front, the right side, and the top of the object. Now this gives you like pertinent information, I guess, about these 3 sides, but it's not the view that you typically would dimension. It's not the view that you would typically like use in plans. It's more like the view that you would use as like a presentation or to show what the finished object looks like. But as far as like all the detailed information, dimensions, all of that, those would go in 2-dimensional views. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take this drawing and we're going to split it into a front view, a top view, and a right side view. Or like, I guess when you did math, it would be like a net or a spread kind of idea. So if we're looking at this object here, and we're going to just look straight at like, I know, let's start with the front. If we're going to look at the front of the object, it's like literally just a rectangle. That's all we're looking at. So I'll show you again, like we're just looking at the front of it. It's literally just a rectangle. And this object, I believe, is like 12 by 4. So it's like a 12 by 4 rectangle. That's it. That's all we're looking at. So if I was to draw that here, and then it is kind of important where you draw things in orthographic projection, and I'll explain that in a second. So the front view always goes in the bottom left, the top above that, and then the right side to the right, and then the notes in the upper right corner. So I'll more or less explain why. So if I was to replace this front view with an actual front view, I'll just draw in lines, I guess. So I want to go over a distance of 12, and I want to go up a distance of 4, and then tie everything back in. Like that's it. I have drawn a rectangle. That's all the front view is. It's like nothing stupendous. So if we were to take this and rotate and just look at the top view, what that looks like, what's a rectangle with like a notch cut out of it. Okay, well, we can draw that. And in fact, we don't even have to type that much. So what I mean by that is, instead of going up here and drawing a line that's 12, what we can do is we can hover over the top corner and go up and we get that extension line. Click. We go over here, hover over this corner, and we get that extension line. Click. And then now you have a line that's 12, and it's perfectly in line with your bottom view. That's one part of orthographic projection, or like when you're making a net, that's really important, is all your views have to line up. So we'll go up here. So I think this is like 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 all the way up. If I look, I can double check, but so it's like 2 and then 2 in. Now this is kind of scaled strangely where the 2 looks more like a 3 or a 4, but it's supposed to be 2. So I'll go back here. So go up 2, into, up 2, out 2, and up 2. So that's really the only like typing or measurement I've had to do so far. Now I know I can hover over this corner and pull up and click, and then click to close. And I have a front view and I have a top view. It's like fairly simple to do orthographic drawing if you more or less understand what you're doing. And then we'll do a right side view. So if we go back here, we'll go back to our front and then we'll rotate to what the right side looks like. Okay, well, it's a rectangle with like 3 parts. So that's fairly simple. We can draw that. So I'll get rid of my right side here. Go back into the line function. And I'm going to take this corner and I'm going to draw over here, click, and then I'm going to hover on here and draw, click. Again, this is saving me time. Like that's the whole point of this is like we're lazy. We want to be more efficient. We don't want to waste time drawing things that we don't have to. So as far as the width of the object, the width of the object is 6. I just remember that, but we can double check with our PDF. Yeah, the width of the object is 6. Okay, sure. So we come back here, it's 6, and then we'll go down, click, and then here, I mean, I think it goes like 2, and then up, and then over 2, and then down, and you can sort of like close it off however you want to. And you have your front, your top, your right. The only thing I didn't do is I didn't put these in the object layer, so I'm going to switch them to the object layer. And I will do that by going to my layers, switch them into object. Now the only thing is there's still something missing. I'm going to move this object down. Move down. So there's a detail that's missing, and this is where we go into our layers. So the only layers we've used so far, I think, is, well, now we've used object, we've used text, and we've used title block. I think that's pretty much all we've used, yes. So I'm going to talk about hidden. So hidden is another layer that you have. So a hidden layer is to depict something that exists, but you can't see it in that view. So it's sort of like if I'm to look at you face on, I have a face. If I turn around, you can see the back of my head, but I still have a face. Like it's still there. It hasn't vanished. So the idea is that like it's telling the operator that there's something there and that it exists, but that you can't necessarily see it in that view. So what I mean by that is like in this object, there's a notch going through the top right here. And you can only see it from the top view, and then you can see it from the right side view, but you can't see it from the left side view. But what's important information that we need to include is that the notch goes all the way through. So in order to like tell whoever's making this that this exists, what you would do is you would kind of, where the notch comes in, you would hover down, and then you would draw what's a hidden line to depict that there's an edge there inside the object. It goes all the way through, but that you can't see it from that view. So I hope this isn't too like abstract and that you more or less get what I'm talking about. So I think as far as drawing and orthographic goes, it's fairly straightforward. It's just determining where the hidden lines are is where it gets a little bit tricky. Maybe you kind of have to think about like, okay, there's that feature, but can you see it? And often it's for things like holes and like edges and chamfers, and you don't know what a chamfer is yet, but just features on a drawing that you need to like highlight. So in this case, there's like a notch that runs all the way through. So you put a hidden line to depict that. I've essentially done the first assignment for you. You know what it looks like. And this is the part here. So what I'm going to want you to do moving forward is to be drawing all of them like this. So you're going to draw them all in the same file. So again, you can open up, don't open your title block file, but you can open up your standards, like your inches standards file, rename it, call it like, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. In your PDF, drawing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all going to be handed in together. So maybe you can call it like inches drawing 1 to 6 or drawing 1 to 6 or something, so you know what it is. You're going to draw them all on the same page, and it's going to make your life so much easier if you actually draw them in line. Now, what some students do and what ends up making them take like forever with their drawing is they draw all the shapes independent of each other and then they move them to be in line. That's not the intention of orthographic drawing. What I mean by that is like orthographic drawing was originally done on paper and pencil. So what you would do is you would plot out your first shape, and it's quite difficult to do paper drafting. I don't know if any of you have ever tried before, because you have this fancy drafting desk and you have this T-square that slides along. First, you just have to level your paper. Like that's a step. Then you have to tape down your paper. And then you have to have like a point of reference, and you need to make sure you have to measure it all out to make sure that everything is like equal. Then once you have your paper set up and you have your border set up and like everything is equal, then you can start drawing. Then you take the time to like, you know, you draw your first line, and then you get your triangle and you draw your 90-degree line and you get your first shape lined up. It's so much work to do that. So what you want to do to save time is you want to take some of those points that you've already measured out on your first shape and you want to project them up. And that's how you get your top view. And you want to take some of those measurements that you spent time like meticulously drawing on your front view, and you want to project them to the right side. That's how you get your right side view. So there is some kind of history behind this and why it works this way and why the views are lined up. So we follow that through with, that's how we do things in the computer. Like, not only does it save you time, not having to type in all those numbers and like, you know, rotate and move everything around, but also like, that's the standard. Now, drafting is like, if you're a fan of rules, like drafting's your jam. Drafting is rules. That's like all it is. Dimensioning has so many rules. Like, drafting is just a series of like rules and regulations that you have to follow in order to produce something that can be read globally. And it's sort of like the English language, where it's like, unless you speak English, it doesn't really mean anything to you. These drawings are supposed to be able to be interpreted internationally, regardless of what language you speak. So setting it up in this projection, like, this is an international setup standard. So it's important that we follow some of these standards so that, like, you know, you can send this to wherever, like Uganda or something, and they can understand and they can make this item and send it back to you. And it's going to look like, you know, it's going to look like this. And it's not going to come back looking like something else because you haven't like drawn it properly. So this is more or less like your first assignment is once you finish your title block. So like all of the things, finish your title block, get it blocked, you know, and take your time on your logo. Like, I don't want you to rush just to get ahead to this. And then when you get to this assignment, you're going to draw all 6 in the same file, and then you can save it. And then what we'll move on to kind of next week, like not Friday, no demos on Friday. Friday's just going to be work time. Next week, at some point when you need it, I'm going to start showing you how to do a viewport and a layout. So that's how you actually put your title block into the page, put your drawing on, and like get it ready for hand in. That's more or less what we're going to do. Now, as far as like getting marks for this step, I'll have you, how do you want to do this? I think I'll wait till next week, and I'll set up an assignment, and I'll have you pick one of these, like whichever item is your favorite, and you'll hand in one, like one of these 6, just like a screenshot on your screen of what like the orthographic projection looks like. And then I'll give you like, I guess, participation marks for completing an orthographic drawing. And then you'll do next week, you'll do this with your like viewport layout, and you'll hand that in for marks. And then we'll learn about dimensioning later next week, which is how you actually put, like, do I have any dimension ones? This one, which is where you put the actual like measurement values on the assignment. And then you won't hand in one, you'll hand in all 6. And that'll be like your first official handed in assignment. So everything up until this point is just like participation marks, or like, I don't know that participation is a really great word, but it's like quiz marks, in class marks. This is an actual, like, when you hand in all 6 as like a 6-page assignment, it's like an actual like project. It's like a little bit of a distinction there from classwork and like assignments and quizzes to like projects. I'm not gonna give tests. I don't give exams. Like, I don't do anything like that. But there is a distinction between like what you do in class and like your everyday work from like what you hand in as a finished product. So I do mark a little bit more aggressively when you hand something in as a project. What I mean by aggressive, I don't mean that like in a negative way, but I'm more detail oriented when you hand something in that's a project versus like your classwork. Your classwork, I just look to see that you're like doing what you're supposed to do and you haven't like gone down a wormhole of like doing something funny that you're not supposed to be doing. It's more or less what I look for. All right, so there are questions about orthographic projection or how to get started or what to do with AutoCAD. Please don't draw in your title block file. So if you are going to use your standards inches template to get started with this, you don't have to start drawing today. My expectation of you today is that you continue what you're working on. Like, this is recorded. You can go back and look at it at any time. Hands up if you have questions. If not, I'm going to end the recording and post a video.